Well, it's a good evening here from the studios of Brisbane radiofm 88 Australia. It's a Thursday night, and our co-host who's sitting above me tonight from the Northern Hemisphere, none other than Andrena Forrest, and it's a good morning to her, as a matter of fact.
Good morning, Jeffrey. Good morning, everybody, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to Dream in the New Dream. And today it's the 6th of June. So for some say this is a portal today. So for those that are in their numbers. Anyway, without further ado, I have the lovely Matt Witt on the show today. So welcome, Matt. It's lovely to see you.
Hello. Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Right. So I'll have lots of questions and I'll be chipping in here, there and everywhere.
All right. Great.
So for most people know Matt in Glastonbury because he does the tree walks in the Abbey and all around Avalon and lots of other things, quite a techno man as well. So I've been wanting to do one of your tree walks for ages, and I did one, I think it's, about 3 weeks ago now, and I absolutely loved it. And with the surname of Forrest, all the trees are my tribe. So so I've got like a few special trees that I like to go to. Well, I got one in particular, but could you start off where I know you said you started off in Salisbury in life, how you've come along the track now to be doing all these things with trees? What has been the stepping stones for you?
Okay, so I'm from Salisbury in Wiltshire, which is about an hour in the car from Glastonbury, a bit more. I stayed there and studied and got a job in web design into my mid-20s, and then decided to become self-employed as a designer, moved to London. So I moved to North London, stayed there for 3 years. That got exhausting. I realised I couldn't kind of stay there for very long without losing my mind. And a friend of mine had a spare room in Glastonbury, and I kind of I'd been to the festival in Glastonbury, religiously since I was a teenager throughout my 20s, and was kind of slowing down with that process, but had never really investigated the town of Glastonbury itself. So didn't really know what I was letting myself in for. I wrote to him and said, do you want a lodger? And that was that. So I came here 2012 September, and the first 6 months of it was awful. It was like, moving into winter. The pace of life was just a complete jar. It was really jarring coming from London to here. I thought that I was like, what the hell have I done? I've just jacked in my life. It was going pretty well to come here. The next spring came and I started to kind of integrate into the town somewhat and make some friends. And it soon sort of panned out that it was a really good thing. It was a good move for my mental health, for general well-being, but just for my creative process as well. I stayed in Glastonbury for a while and started going out traveling. So I traveled to Asia, South America, North America, and China and Russia, and all of these different places in various chunks, and then returned to Glastonbury every time. It was like using Glastonbury as a base. I could do that. I had a room that I could leave and come back to, go traveling and come back to it. Every time I was coming back to Glastonbury, I was kind of being reintroduced to the place. It was attracting me back somewhat, but it was like also reintroducing itself to me. It was like a pilgrimage back to Glastonbury. Every trip away was like a pilgrimage back to Glastonbury, and it felt more and more like home each time I came back, as I became more integrated into the place. And I'd rather not be anywhere else now. There are so many wonderful aspects about living in Glastonbury, challenging aspects as well.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small town in the middle of the levels. It's a tiny little place, 8,000 to 10,000 population, but it's got this big personality that draws people in from all over the world. So as I was traveling around to other places in the world, realizing that there were these kind of hubs of activity for creative and healing modalities and things like that. People were going to practice yoga in Mysore, or going to Cusco in Peru to do to investigate plant medicines. And I realized coming back to Glastonbury each time that Glastonbury was one of those places. People were drawn here to explore those things, which wasn't immediately apparent when I moved here in the first place. I love living here now for the instant access to the countryside. So it's this little island. Glastonbury are these four hills that pop out of this flat landscape. So you can see on the map that's being shown on the pictures there, you've got the Glastonbury Tor, obviously the big hill. You've got Windmill Hill, the hill that I'm on currently. You've got Wirral Hill towards the southwest, and then there's Chalice Hill, which is to the right, the left of the tour in that image. And it's such a characteristic landscape, and it means that as you're walking around, you're never more than 5 minutes from a beautiful vista. The surrounding area of Glastonbury would have originally been covered in water, and it's only dry now because of the drainage systems that are in place. It would have made Glastonbury an island, or a peninsula rather, a sanctuary, a protected sanctuary, and it was joined to land towards West Pennard. So towards the east was the only access point onto the sanctuary of the Glastonbury Hills, other than by a waterborne craft of some sort.
Yeah.
So these are the things that I love about Glastonbury. Perfect example there. You just walk in any direction, you're immediately in the countryside. You've got beautiful views everywhere. It was a homecoming, I think, coming to Glastonbury. I struggle with Salisbury because it's a concert. Glastonbury's got this creative, cultural aspect. Salisbury's a bit more reserved and conservative. It's got a beautiful cathedral, and it's near to Stonehenge, and it's got a few other things going for it. It's got 5 rivers that run into it. Again, beautiful countryside, but it's not Glastonbury.
Yeah. I mean, Glastonbury's got such a pull, because I know I lived here in 2007, and then a couple of years later I went to Australia for 10 years, and I'm currently down by the ocean, and I didn't really want to be back in Glastonbury, but I keep getting the pull and I keep coming back up. So I'm looking for somewhere in and around Glastonbury to set up to be back here. So yeah,
Great.
There's when you're meant to be here, you keep getting this pull, like literally.
Yeah, I mean, it's notoriously a difficult place to come and settle in because there's a lack of accommodation, lack of jobs, all of these things. But it's persistence, but also it's like the right timing and circumstance, and the doors open. And
yeah, as in when. Anyway, so
coming to Glastonbury, having lived in London, and London's a green city, one of the greenest cities, but it's still just a city, and it's difficult to find a horizon anywhere. So coming back to Glastonbury really pushed me back to a connection with nature that I might have lost by getting involved in computers. And I'm a graphic designer, web designer by trade. That's what pays the bills. And I might have lost touch with an interest I had in nature from childhood. My family are from landscape gardening backgrounds. My dad's got this really long garden that's got a path all the way through it in different segments all the way through, and it's like his art. And so I remember gaining little nuggets of information about the trees when I was little, and still now I go through those processes with people as I'm walking around. So Glastonbury helped me to reconnect with that. I spend my happy place is out there in the fields with my guitar or with my pen, being inspired by nature. I'm like a romantic poet by heart, if you like. It's at heart. Never more, that's my happy place. I'm so engaged and comfortable in that. I'm just reading the things that are coming up on the bottom.
It's all about you.
Right. So I can talk about me for an hour. That's what a relief.
Yeah. So because you've just won silver pen for writing, didn't you, in the Bard trials?
Right. So this is another aspect of Glastonbury that's helped to open up my creative aspects, is the fact that we chair a bard in Glastonbury. So every year a bard will be chaired for a year and a day. That bard has to live within walking distance of Glastonbury. In May there's a trials. So the people who want to become bards go and perform their written piece on a theme. This year's theme was the Arwen whispers, the Arwen speaks, the Arwen roars. The Arwen is like the creative force, inspiration, the creative force behind everything. And it's what bards want to achieve when they're speaking a poem out loud. It's this moment when a poet is speaking and the audience are completely engaged and captivated by what that poet is saying. You can feel the silence come about in the room, and that's the Arwen speaking. So Glastonbury chairs a bard every year, and as part of that competition there's a silver pen award. Where is my silver pen? It's around here somewhere. I won the silver pen this year with a written, so it's a written entry. You have to write in poem on the theme. Would you like me to recite that poem? It's a 1 minute poem.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So this competition was judged anonymously. So you all chuck your poems in, and then the winner from last year picks the one they like best.
Is that the first time you've won it?
That's the first time I've entered.
Oh, really?
And yes, yeah.
Fantastic.
Sure. Okay. The previous winner was Jessica Ruby Radcliffe. Okay, so here we go. The Arwen. You could zoom into that screen if you want, or increase the font size so it can be read. Okay, I'm going to do it without the words. The Arwen whispers. The Arwen speaks. The Arwen roars. The Arwen trickles. The Arwen flows. The Arwen pours. The Arwen leaps. The Arwen flies. The Arwen soars. The Arwen whistles. The Arwen sings. The Arwen calls. And when the Arwen sleeps, the Arwen whimpers, the Arwen snores, the Arwen grunts, the Arwen snuffles, the Arwen paws. And when the Arwen floats in Arwen boats upon the Arwen shore, the Arwen shows the Arwen way, the Arwen oars. The Arwen knows, the Arwen turns, the Arwen grows, the Arwen burns, the Arwen hides, the Arwen seeks, the Arwen peaks, the Arwen returns. The Arwen talks to Arwen hearts, the Arwen doors, the Arwen whispers, the Arwen speaks, the Arwen roars. The Arwen by me. So the theme was quite, this poem really wrote itself because the theme is really distinctive in its 3-part, the Arwen, the Arwen, Arwen. And I'm just going to repeat this pattern and adjust it in only a few places to make the poem work. And that was the idea behind the poem. Jessica really liked it. So it won. And I'm really happy about that. To gain some recognition for writing and doing things creatively in Glastonbury is really helpful.
Yeah, fantastic. So congratulations on that. So
cheers, thank you.
Right, so shall we go back to the trees?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so you landed in Glastonbury and you, so what was the, because obviously I know you do your artwork and your songwriting. So what was the main pull that you started to do the talks and take people around, and like your favorite trees? Because like I said, I've got I love the trees in the Abbey, and I love the trees in winter time when all the leaves are gone, and I love it when the leaves have dropped and walking through the leaves, and all of these things. So carry on.
Lovely. Yeah, sure thing. So I was working as an artist anyway, making creative things. I did a project called Draw Glastonbury, where I did a picture of a Glastonbury scene every day for a month. It turned out to be 56 days in total, and then did an exhibition and made a calendar out of it. I haven't got any of those images there, but making images of Glastonbury tour became something that I do. There's a folder called illustrations there, in the folder that I shared. Abstract images, so influenced by the design work that I do as well. So I was working in those things and walking all the time, but finding myself not fully engaged in life. It was like Glastonbury needed something else from me. I was going traveling, come back to Glastonbury. I didn't feel steady, and I didn't really have roots down properly. So it took a commitment, and so I was sat out in a little coombe in Glastonbury, and I wasn't feeling terribly great. It was in that moment where I was like, right, I have to do something here. What do I enjoy doing? I enjoy walking and being creative in nature. I enjoy playing guitar in nature and writing songs about nature. Apparently other people might enjoy that as well. So I'm going to invite some people to come on a walk, listen to me talk about the trees and the landscapes that we walk through. And I'm going to play them a song, and we can do a little meditation and things like that. So that's how it started. I invited some people along. I think the first walk, like 6 people came, and it was by donation. It was just an experiment. And I kept on offering it, and people kept on coming. On some of the first walks, we had a lot of Glastonbury community people there, and some of the walks were like 30 people large. It was incredible, and such a relief. It helped me to more honestly express myself in this town. It helped me to pull something extra out of myself. I think that Glastonbury, I think any place and any location is ripe for collaboration with humans and an interchange, an exchange of creativity. But Glastonbury seems to be something more tangible about it. Like, you can cut it with a knife here. It wants to collaborate with you, and to actually stay here, I had to collaborate with it in more than just offering my design services to people, so I had to get out on the land and show my commitment to Glastonbury, the landscape, and the trees in the landscape. So the walks focus on the trees mainly. It's tours of Glastonbury guided by the trees. So while we're walking around the Glastonbury landscape, I'm talking about the trees that we meet, but I'm also talking about introducing the landscape, and then introducing the history that's joined onto the landscape as well. I'm not a historian, and I don't go too far down that hole, but it's people come here for that. So, I talk about those things. I talk about the spiritual aspects of Glastonbury. I talk about, the tour itself and what that might be, which is different for everybody, I think. And so there's a few trees on the route. So we come out of Glastonbury High Street and we walk up Bovetown and into a place called Witt Hollow, where there's a gorge and there are trees along the side. The image that's on the screen currently is of Grandmother Linden, Grandmother Lime. She is like a tree in Bushycombe that people go and visit and leave their wishes. She's like a natural chapel. This is the crescendo of the walks mostly. That image there, it shows that it's muddy down below. But normally in the summertime, we can all kind of sit around the linden there and enjoy being enclosed in her green cave beneath the linden. There's so much to say about Grandmother Lime specifically, but also the linden in general. Culturally, it seems to want to gather people around it. There's a Polish lady who comes on the walks called Bee, and she said that in her village in Poland, there's a big linden tree that they've built a table around so that people come and eat around the table, gather around the linden and you eat. There they have Christian emblems around the tree as well. So it's kind of merging this natural with the Christian religious as well. That seems to have not been that heritage of linden worship seems to have got lost somehow on our island. We got obsessed with oaks, you know, the masculine, like the linden's kind of the feminine aspect, and the oaks, got this masculine feel about it. If we were to impose those kind of archetypes on our trees, the attraction of grandmother lime goes deep. So on the theme of of Poland and Polish culture, B introduced me to a poem by a Polish poet who was quite a prominent Polish person, called Jan Kochanowski, from the 1500s, I think. And this poem was translated into English, and B says that it's quite a good translation. The poem should be in the Google Doc labeled poems, if you've got that there. And the poem talks about the joys to be found, some of the joys to be found in linden tree. Shall I recite that now?
Go for it.
So it goes like this. We've got the Polish on the right there and the English on the left. Jan Kochanowski, the linden tree. Traveller, come. Enter under my leaves for a rest, where the sun will not reach you. Come, and I promise the best. Even with sun at the highest, shooting down on the meadows, brilliant rays, diffuse them I shall to the softest of shadows. Here, right under my crown, wafts gently and coolly a breeze. Here, the starlings and larks all abound and argue with ease. Here, the hard-working bees extract from my sweet-smelling flower honey that graces the finest of tables at family hour. And, without effort, with whispers that come from my deep, I shall be singing all visitors sweetly to sleep. Though, in Hesperides' garden, none of the apples I bear, as the most giving of trees, my Lord has planted me there. The linden tree by Jan Kochanowski. So it talks about, so linden's got this habit of blossoming in midsummer. So while all of the trees are busy in the springtime, the linden kind of holds out. It needs all of the heat of midsummer to produce viable flowers, fruits. So while all of the orgy on the breeze is underway in the springtime, the linden just holds back, puts out its heart-shaped leaf, and then just in time for midsummer emerges a bract with creamy white blossoms beneath. They attract insects. So at the right time of year, the best time of the year to visit the linden tree is in midsummer, because she quite comfortably arouses all of the senses at once. You're dazzled by the creamy white blossom. You hear the smell of the blossom. You smell the smell of the blossom. You hear the bees and the pollinating insects visiting the flowers. Then you can take some of those blossoms and pop it in water, and you can taste the linden. A cordial made of linden flower is beautiful. You can also dry the flower and make tea for the winter time. And then if you plonk your bum down at her feet, you can feel her physical form as well. And really, there's no other tree that can speak to all five senses in one sitting like that. There's always one missing, but the linden tree fulfills it all. So that's why I love the linden tree, for all of those reasons. She's calming in her presence as well. If you drink the tea, it's said to help the nervous system, and then she can lull you into a sleep as well. So that's one of the trees on the route. There are a number of copper beech trees as well on the route. I know that you've mentioned a copper beech tree in the Abbey grounds, right?
Yeah.
That you really like.
Oh, I love sitting there, because it's it's got a nice little area where you can actually sit and have your back right against a tree. So that is my favorite tree. How old is that tree, that copper beech?
Well, it's difficult to age it because of its strange fluted trunk, but it's certainly up around 150 years old. Beech trees at 300 or 400 years old might want to kind of go on their way. They haven't got the longevity that the oak and the yew has. But the characteristics of that tree, that's the image of the bottom of the tree there. The fluted, the flutes on the bottom of the tree, not always there on of beech trees of this age. It suggests something about its history. You can also see a horizontal line cutting through the center of the tree there. A marking like that suggests that it's had a wire wrapped around it. And that suggests that it's been part of a boundary or a fence at some point. There almost was there were certainly cattle and sheep grazing in the abbey grounds for quite some time, probably while this tree was growing up, which might have also affected its base. I think that there's probably still barbed wire inside the tree, and it's not allowing the tree to heal completely. So it's causing this gnarled feature. Around the back of the tree, there's a very pronounced trough that fills with water. A trough, or it's in the abbey ground, so it could be called a font. It's the beech font. I've read in places that the water that collects in holes in beech trees can be used to treat skin,
Really?
eczema and things like that. If you can get over the fact that you're kind of applying stagnant water to your to your skin, then. But I mean, I'm not trained in those kind of medical uses of trees and plants, but that's something that I've read somewhere, which is quite an interesting thing. And that tree has a good reserve of juicy beech water. You could almost splash it on your face. It's a beautiful tree. Beautiful tree. It's copper beech, and at this time of the year, it's got this. It looks quite dark. I visited it last weekend. The purple color of the copper beech tree. The copper refers to its autumnal color, but for most part of the year, it's got this purple, red, maroon color. But this changes drastically throughout the year. It also changes depending on the angle you're looking at the tree as well. You can see the tree from the outside, and it can be completely red or maroon, and then you walk underneath, look up into the branches, and it's green. It's a tree of transformation in that regard. This isn't the biggest copper beech tree in Glastonbury, though. There are a number of them in Glastonbury Cemetery that are of quite some stature.
Right.
And then there's also the copper beech tree at Copper Beech House, near to Morrison's there. It's in a walled garden, so you can't access it, but you can see its perfectly formed crown. It's an epic tree. You can get in there with permission, and you walk up to it, and it's twice the girth of the one in the abbey ground.
That's it. Wow.
Yeah.
There's some lovely leaf mandalas there.
Sure.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was going to say they look fantastic. I remember, I went to Wales donkeys years ago, and we did a workshop, and it was to do a mandala. And we all had to do our own to honor the earth. And I remember finding these branches of the tree, and one was really heart shaped. And I had great pleasure going around getting leaves and nuts and all sorts of things, like filling up. So it's there's a work of art, and it's like giving back to the earth, isn't it?
Very much so. I have a lot to say about that. Would you just excuse me for 1 minute?
Yeah, no problem. That must be
Pathways.
Oak, ash, and thorn. But it's amazing what you can do, isn't it? Like mandalas or different things with the leaves and the twigs and bits and bobs. Yep. I like a little magpie. I come back with, I got little stones or rocks or fir cones in my pocket. So yeah, but I mean, I did Matt's talk. I think must have been about 3 weeks ago, and going down round to the bushy croup is a lovely spot. And he starts you off in Bushy Coombe, and there's 2 trees intertwined there on the left, and they've stuck a blimmin' lamppost right almost in front of it, like, you know, when you take the photo. And I'm thinking, why in the hell would you put a lamppost right there by those 2 trees? I don't know if he's got a picture of that one. I know I haven't put my pictures in. So I was saying, Matt, about when we started the walk in Bushy Coombe, the 2 trees, there was the oak, and how they were intertwined, and they've put a blimmin' lamppost right in the front.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Sure.
Words
Yeah.
fail me at times.
I don't know. Yeah. These things. That's a very special location, though, through Witt in Glastonbury. And you're right, there's the beech tree and an oak tree that have grown together on the embankment, and their roots have crossed over like this. And yeah, really beautiful. So the leaf art that you were showing before, this is sprung out of just spending time in nature, being quite inspired by like Andy Goldsworthy, working with nature. This whole process of the patience that's required in working with nature is quite an interesting one. It's quite a testing process, a meditative process, but also really frustrating. You know, you can get to the point where you've got a beautiful artwork and then a gust of wind can come and just knock it away. Being at the whim of nature in these processes really sort of tests your own resolve. Some of those images there, you know, there's a lot of maple leaves in a spiral. One of them I did. There's a little creek in Glastonbury that arrives from one of the natural springs, and there are willows through there, and the autumnal willow yellow colour. I just lined up all of the leaves along the stream, and it's a, you know, a complete scenery. It's an artwork in a scene. I love this, playing with these ideas. There are quite a few. This is the image. Thank you.
It looks lovely.
So this went all the way through the woodland like that, and it took hours.
I bet.
And it's for no other, apart from to take a photo of it. It's an aesthetic, a lovely aesthetic to end with. But it's all about the process. Working with art in nature.
It's like a open-eyed meditation, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And
it reminds me of dominoes, mate.
Dominoes. Yeah.
Years and weeks and weeks putting together those domino trails.
I used to do that as a child. Yeah. So yes, all of these things. So is this coherent? What's going on here? I've arrived in Glastonbury. I've started doing the tree walks. So presently, the tree walks are running in Glastonbury every twice a month, ideally. That's walks for the community. So inviting anyone who wants to join. We go out and have a little trip around the landscape, meet the trees. I do the tours in the Abbey grounds as well, which are more formal tours, and then I do tours for tourists. So introducing new arrivals to Glastonbury, giving them a trip around the landscape, an introduction to Glastonbury, navigated by the trees. People really, this is getting some really good feedback. The talk itself has got 5 stars on TripAdvisor, and it's highly recommended. And
that's good.
I love playing this role in Glastonbury of, you know, being one of the first people that people meet when they arrive. Like sometimes I'll meet people outside the church, and I'll say, when did you arrive? And they'll say, oh, we just arrived. Yeah, and that's quite a responsibility. You have to conduct yourself in the right manner. I love playing this role in Glastonbury. I think this is part of the bardic role. So this is, I considered myself an artist, you know, a musician and a poet and all of these things, but I didn't realize that there was a kind of umbrella term for the activity that I was taking part in, and until I came to Glastonbury. And, you know, we focus on some of the kind of pre-Christian traditions, and although it's a new age rehash, this bardic role is a relief to me. It was a relief to find out that there's a role in the community for a person who wants to share their knowledge of the trees and engage people creatively, to inspire people. That was the role of the bard in the olden times. It was more to perhaps inspire armies and things like that. But the role of the bard in modern times has changed. We no longer need to inspire our armies into battle, and we need to inspire our people to fulfill their full potential, or to at least investigate some avenues for cracking open the conditioning that's imposed.
Well, you're the last century's mainstream media, weren't you?
Yeah, right. That's it. Yeah, and now we can't rely on our mainstream media.
No, not at all. It's a comedy show.
It sure is.
Anyway, we won't go there.
Let's keep it off of the political.
Yeah. Let's stay with the trees. What so I don't know if you want to follow on anywhere, but what is your most favorite trees and places? Obviously there's lots here. I mean, like I said, there's so where would be your favorite? And it's like, for a lot of us, we sort of acknowledge a tree when we get there, and we'll hug a tree, and we do all sorts of woo-woo things, if you like, to some. So what approach when you come up to your trees? Do you connect? Do you talk to the trees and see what they want? And do you go into that sort of
I always make sure that I approach the tree in with a feeling of gratitude, with an open heart, and just to kind of gently introduce myself. And if I've got people with me, I'm saying, hello, I've brought some people with you. And this is not done externally. This is all in a thought process. It's a heart. It's communicated through the heart, if you like, to the tree. And then I, as part of the walk, I offer a song or a poem or both to the tree, and then perhaps some organic matter to the tree as well. It's just respect. I approach the tree. I approach trees with the same respect as I approach a human. I approach the tree with how I would like to be approached. Treat others as you would like to be treated, if you like. And I think that applies to all beings, and trees are not anything different. We are trees that walk. I think that they can't talk to us, but they can't talk to us. What a statement to make. I've certainly sat beneath trees and felt communications that of inspiration, creative communications. There's one oak tree that's my favorite to go and stand with out on Stone Down, which is the area that surrounds the Tor, the plateau that surrounds the Tor. And I call it the singing oak, because whenever I'm with it, it's like inspiring words and melodies, and it feels like this is a prime location for creative inspiration. Stood beneath the singing oak, it's like it's singing. So yes, I believe that there is a collaborative communication between trees that maybe not be literal. It may be imaginary. It might be imagery. Often springs up when you're with certain trees, or certain feelings or certain memories that come up. It's a case of, I think, a meditative one as well. It's being in nature and with the trees helps you. First of all, it's like sure, you're in a beautiful surround, but it attracts you inward as well. For me personally, it's provides that space where you can turn inwards and allow this exchange between human and nature to occur. And yeah, trying not to be too woo woo about it. I think hugging has been hugging is shown to really help us, like, physiologically, and I think that goes for hugging trees as well.
I know, and it's funny because I was with my granddaughter somewhere, and I'm not sure if we were at Burnham Beaches or something, and they said, "Come on, Nana, let's hug this tree." And I went to my son, "Nothing to do with me." But yeah, and you see kids doing it now, which is lovely.
That's great. Yeah, amazing. I think that we shouldn't be shy about those things.
No,
Totally.
quite.
And I think that it's really important for us to maybe the kids are there to teach us. Maybe they've got a deeper connection than we have. I find myself kind of talking a lot to adults and that, but really the adults are past it. We should be focusing on the children and teaching them about nature.
So do you do any
great
children take like school children parties out and do the trees?
Sure. So part of the walk, a big aspect of the walks that I do is educational. So we're teaching tree identification. We're teaching really practical techniques for getting the tree right. When we come to tree ident as beginners, it's really easy. Tree blindness. You just see a big swathe of green and you don't know really what to look at. So it's a process of picking out very certain things about the tree that help you to identify it. So initially I'm teaching adults, but then we had kids come along. There was a lad called Xander who was like 9 or 10 or something like that when he started coming, and he could have done his own tree walks. He could have led his own tree walks around. And so so leading on from that, I've offered workshops along the way, mostly in the winter to teach winter tree ident, because we lose the leaves in winter. And so and these have been well attended, but very hit and miss. So I try and include these things into the walks themselves as much as I can. I ended up offering too many different things, and so people didn't know whether to attend a workshop or whether to attend a walk or the Abbey tour or what. So yes, this is something that I would like to get into more, and there's lots of homeschool kids around in Glastonbury whose parents might be interested in taking this up as part of their child's education, but also to work formally in schools. I would like to do as well.
Oh well, we'll put it out there. Anybody who's listening to contact you.
Yeah, but I just want to take on the point you're saying, it's for the kids, but in reality it's the adults, because the adults had the understanding, but they got caught up in the game of Monopoly. Meet a partner and get a house, have kids, and then pop them off and try and have life about 60 years old, rather than carry on at 20 to 30 or 40 to settle down. But so your job really is to reawaken the adults, because the adults then can do the nursery rhymes and storytelling to their grandkids. So you skip out that next generation, and but having a grandparent who's open to it, because at the end of the day, the grandkids' parents, they're doing the Monopoly game, but at least grandparents can actually help to educate their grandkids to the point of the deepened understanding that they've all had, and of course their crown chakra is open, ready to receive that knowledge, and it's just a matter of how long they're going to go before they get programmed. But I acknowledge what you're doing. Yeah, acknowledge what you're doing.
Yeah. I
just want to come back to the oak tree as well. The oak tree, was always signified as the masculine, majestic tree that kings took on board. But the oak was more pronounced for its construction, not only in the Navy ships, but for merchant marine, but also in the construction of those cathedrals. So it played a very important part. I do know that in Scandinavia, they went and planted acres and acres and acres of oak trees for the future for ships building. But then, of course, the iron industry come along, and there's no need to get those oak trees, because now we've got steel ships. But anyway, sorry.
It's these things that we've got to thank for the ancient oaks that exist here. Britain, the islands, the UK has got the least amount of forest cover, but the most amount of ancient trees, because we've still got the remnant pollards, the old oak pollards that have huge girth that were trimmed for their boughs over and over again. They still exist, and also the oaks that were planted in the manor houses, and so we got rich people to thank for for the oaks that still exist here as well.
Well, Andrena went to Longley, so going into Longley is just a natural forest that the the Lord of the Manor is kept, and of course the same goes for Sherwood Forest. So
sure. There's also a place really nearby here, Butley. There's a manor house there with open pasture around it, which you can access. You might get thrown off, but there are linden trees there. There are huge oak trees on that land. Yes, there we are. They're here. This is something that European people, note when when they visit the UK. It's like, you take really good care of your old trees. It's like, we probably don't take good care of them. They're just sat there. But in Italy and France and whatever, they've removed them for the most part. Some still exist, but yeah.
You got the Forest of Dean, haven't you, in the Wye Valley there? I mean, it's just it's surreal, isn't it, driving through there?
I'll tell you what, when I went to Centre Parks a few weeks ago, I'd heard about it, but I didn't really know anything. And you're allowed to park your car outside your cabin, offload, and then you put it in the main car park. And so everybody walks everywhere, and it's a hell of a lot of walking, or you hire a bike. But all I could hear at times was just a tree, the wind blowing through the trees all the time. It was just, for me, it was just absolutely magical. I thought, I was going to the kids, listen to the trees, listen to them blowing in the wind. They're singing to you, but I mean, obviously, but it was just green everywhere, and pine cones all over the ground. And it was just absolutely, well, it was just right up my street. I just loved it. But just hearing the wind through the trees and no cars or anything was just magical.
This is one of the most stilling things for me as well, is the wind in the trees. Near to the singing oak, there's a large poplar tree. Poplar is known as, it's the whispering tree. It's one of because its leaves have these long petioles, stems on the bottom, heart-shaped leaf with a long petiole, and they're quite leathery. They flap about quite easily in the wind. So the slightest breeze provokes the poplar, and it's a whisper in the distance. You can whisper your secrets to the poplar. One of the loveliest trees to hear in the wind, poplar.
Aren't they used for making matchsticks?
Is that right?
I know, just asking. I
don't know. I'm okay.
Because the tall trees, they don't really have to do much thinning out. Hey, we had Holly Hunter. She was the one who talks to trees as well, and she used to talk about hugging trees and sitting there with the back to the tree and just tuning into the tree. It was almost like, when she was speaking, it was like you're taken back to the movie Avatar, where they're all, the whole indigenous people are all there holding hands and moving and talking to the roots of the mycelium network of the tree.
Yeah, because she always says, when you get to a tree and you sit with it, introduce yourself and tell the tree your name, which I always do. I go, hi, my name's Andrena. as you do.
I think that this encourages us to include trees in our communities, and I like to name trees as well. Sure, the tree might have a name itself for itself, but I like to apply names to trees in the landscape that help me to refer to them, or to pay respect to the role that they play in the landscape. So there's a certain beech called the Guardian Beech and her oak. She's got an oak tree growing right next to her. And then there's Grandmother Lime. And then there's this other really tall copper beech that's got eyes all the way up it. And it seems to be the beech tree at the highest altitude in Glastonbury. And I call this the all-seeing beech. I think that this really helps us to build relationships. Some people come on the walks and they've never been introduced to this idea of conducting yourself in nature as if these beings are human and want interaction and conversation, or don't want interaction and conversation in some cases. There's something to be spoken about the disrespect, I think, in some cases, of imposing ourselves on trees who perhaps don't want anything to do with us, or the follow-on kind of detrimental effect that spending too much time around certain trees might have. For example, Gog and Magog in Glastonbury. It's possible that Gog died because of root compaction. So this ancient tree of hundreds and hundreds of years had too many people visiting it, caused its roots to compact, and that eventually killed the tree over the course of decades. Someone then also lit a tea light within the hollow oak, which is, it's really frustrating. So as much as, encourage interaction with nature, be respectful as well. Some of these ancient trees don't want anything to do with you and would prefer you not to be climbing in their delicate branches. And
I can recall a tea light on a camphor table.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Oh, Andrena got the joke. Hey, Andrena got it. Hey, we had a school principal here who's really unbelievable teacher. When I say a teacher, he was a head principal, the headmaster. And he grew a pine tree, one single pine tree, as you walked into the administration block. And he said, "Jeff, this pine tree is me. I'm an introduced species." But he gone and planted all these native trees, and he created a rainforest in one section, and the other one, it was quite denuded of trees, really. It was just dirt. And then out in front of the classroom, at the beginning of the year, the kids were told to go and clean the actual garden bed out in front of their classroom and then start planting companion plants. Yeah. And so now if a child started playing up, they were sent out of the classroom to Mr. Thompson, and he would then look at them and then say, "Right, you take this pot plant and you go back to the class and you put that pot plant on your table." Yeah. And so really what he was his education was quite surreal, because he had no examinations in the course of going to that state school, and it was all about complementary education. So he would create a hexagonal set of, the tables were all put together in a hexagonal, so you have about 6 students sitting around this thing, and then they had to work things through and to come to a solution. And so they articulated and all that stuff and come to their solution. When those kids left, they had to go to a high school. They were in the top 10 of the school results when they had to go and do exams, because they were critical thinkers. They thought it through. But he's also teaching them, you can have a rainforest or you can have a denuded area, which is just dirt. And then, of course, here was the pine tree as an introduced species to show, hello, we all have to stick out and stand tall. Yeah. Very interesting guy. Anyway, now I don't know if it was Holly or it might have had some other guest, but they told us that trees in Africa were bloody racist.
Right. Wasn't
that right? So it's really interesting conversation about how a species of trees, and that, say, a clump of trees would come together and their roots would interact with each other. Yeah. And they would separate themselves at the crown. So each one of their species, their family of trees, got sunlight. But if an introduced species got in there, they would make sure they would cloud over so that that tree never got its crown to see any sunlight. Right. Boom, boom. And yet the same person, I'm quite sure, I don't know who it was, but it was about giraffes in the savannah. When they would come to this particular tree that they loved the actual leaves, when they started eating that particular leaf, the tree realized it was coming under attack, and it would bring up a fluid that would come up and go into the leaves to basically peeve off the giraffe. Now, the cunning giraffe, because the scent now is in the air and the wind would carry it, that cunning giraffe wouldn't go downstream because all the other trees in that species knew that they were under attack. It would go upstream where the other trees of the same species didn't realize the giraffes were coming and they were going to be under attack. Well, there's some really interesting stuff in nature. Yeah.
Oh, we don't know the half of it, right?
No, not at all.
This is really interesting. Sure, there's something to be said here about like the beech tree. I've read that it's friendly to its own own beech trees, but other trees that want to move into its space, it's not going to share its resources with. So it's not going to allow light, or it's not going to share its resources through the roots. Apparently beech is a selfish tree in that regard. I guess it depends on also the context and what other trees are surrounding it, though.
Well, I was calling it racial prejudice, but anyway, it's another thought. Hey, but what was really interesting, when the grandfather tree or the grandmother tree was cut down, because their roots were interlaid as a family, the other trees would feed it. And that's why when you see just the stump, all of a sudden you see another shoots coming up. It's because the other members of the family are feeding that tree.
There's a weird, it is unbelievable, and there's this weird thing as well in woodlands where you get these dead trees that are kept standing and kept fed with sugar, but seem to be a deposit for waste from the other trees. So so things that the other trees want to get rid of are placed in, exited through these dead albino trees or whatever they're called. They lost all their greenery. They just seem to be deposits for waste from the other trees or something like that, but they're kept alive with sugars. It's fascinating, the depth of it.
Amazing. We don't know. Yeah. What I was going to ask about tree spirits, if you go in the Abbey now from the exit, what used to be the exit, and as you just go in and to your left, there's a couple of massive big trees there, and I can't think. I think it's the first one, but I know I've taken pictures of the trunk and the faces and shapes in there, just phenomenal. So do you capture a lot of the tree spirit faces or different that you see when you're out and about?
I capture them. I notice them. I don't. I took one recently of a little willow being, a little face in a willow tree. I reckon, like my grandma used to say to me when she was alive, when we were children, that in the patterns on her sofa, she could disappear into these patterns and faces would emerge, and I was like, this is what happens in nature, and it's this human ability to recognize, desire to recognize a face in front of them, or perhaps we are seeing something deeper. I love playing with these ideas. Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've taken lots of different pictures, and like, there's some trees that we call the dragon tree because you can see the head, and there's so many amazing shapes of trees, faces and spirits, or whatever people like to call them.
And I think it's another way to help you to develop relationships with nature as well. Definitely this creative engagement with nature, and sure, not forgetting obviously the practical side of knowing what the tree you're looking at is in terms of species, and
because I found that on your talk. I mean, I have got a tree book, and I got a little pocket size one, and of course I don't carry it around with me, and like I said to you we were looking, I said, well, I thought one was the beech, and what's the other one that's very similar? I've forgotten now. Was it no, not the sycamore? There were two, and you showed the two different leaves, just what the difference.
We were looking at the beech leaf and the linden leaf, I think.
Right.
It didn't. The differences between them sometimes don't become apparent until you hold them up next to each other, and then you see, the beech tree has no serration, and the linden tree has a heart shape to it, and a slight toothing around the edge, and yes, it's this tree blindness. We kind of walk through, and we see a million leaves in front of us, and we don't know how to pick out the useful information to help. And then
this is your book here, because
this is the book
you've put together. I've got this book and I love it, and of course sometimes I got it with me, sometimes I haven't, but that's how it is at the moment. But yeah, it's a fabulous book.
Right, so I'm a graphic designer, web designer, and then I like the trees. I spent a lot of time in the Abbey and just started off my own back doing tours of the Abbey grounds. They were like, oh, that's a good idea. Do you want to do them formally? And also, we've got the funding to do this book. Do you want to, write it? So I've designed it, written it, produced it, done all the photos for it. It's had a little bit of input from the grounds manager and from, marketing team at the Abbey. But this is like one of my finest moments. I think it's merged all of the things that I'm interested in, creative, communication, writing, photography, all of these things, trees gone into the book. And what a pleasure it was to actually spend time in the Abbey, documenting all of the different trees, going deep on the Abbey trees. It was great.
And it's affordable book, like
Right.
some are not. So
they want to flog a whole load, don't they? So it's £3 for the book. It's an A4 guide with a map inside, and it's a nice supplement to walk around the Abbey with.
Yeah, no, it's a lovely book. I love mine. And so anything else you'd like to share about your talks or anything else?
So yeah, okay. So just to point people in the direction of my projects and creative work, tothetrees.co.uk is the website. You can find, I release a monthly newsletter with the full moon. So every full moon I'll release a newsletter that mostly talks about my own journeys through Glastonbury and observations from nature. Includes poetry, and then includes any of the other things that I've been doing, like gigs or songwriting. So there's a recent song that I've written called "Courage Knows the Way," which we did a video for, of me sitting in the woods playing the song.
Have we got that
might
one
be a good. We were testing that earlier, weren't we, to see if we could get the audio on it. So
all right,
that might be a good way to finish. But so it's tothetrees.co.uk. I do a lot of writing and poems, music making, and all of these things. Go and check that out. I hope this has been a coherent talk. I know I've touched on a lot of different subjects, but yeah.
No, it's been lovely. Like I said, I love anything to do with trees, and so we'll have just to listen to your.
Well, that's not coming across very well at this end because it's all glitchy, but I'm not sure how it would come across to the public.
Can you hear it? Because I'm hearing it.
I can hear it.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Don't be critical. People will get a flavour.
I mean, it's awful at this end, so no.
Oh well, people can find it on your website.
Sure. Yes, it's on YouTube. Courage Knows the Way.
Right.
There's a YouTube channel where I've also. Can you stop it now, please? Because it's doing my head in.
Right.
Hey,
it sounded like it was underwater at this end. So.
From, oh yeah, no, it came out okay. Hey, you probably get an email from YouTube, Facebook, about copyright. So you just have to say, yeah, you gave copyright permission.
Right. Okay. No worries.
Yeah.
So
yes, quite often we've had it in the past, and then all of a sudden we've lost the show.
Oh right. Okay. Right. So yes, those things I do 2-minute. There's a series of 2-minute tree walks on the YouTube channel as well. 2-minute tree walks, like little introductions to very small little things in nature, and yeah. Yes.
Right. Well, if there's nothing else to cover today, it's been absolutely fantastic. I've loved every moment, and I can't thank
really
you enough
enjoyed
for
talking
sharing.
to you.
Yeah. So maybe later
thank you.
on, near the winter time, autumn, winter time, maybe we can do something again about that time of year with the trees.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to do that. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me today, Andrena and Jeffrey. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, thank you for the show.
I got one question. I got one question. Yeah.
Yes.
Hey,
what question?
I'm watching the show. I'm listening. It just so happens I've got a friend we're talking off here who's from Sunshine Coast, who's coming to Glastonbury. Where do you start your walks? Do you start in the car park there by the Abbey, or do you meet at the pub at the George and Pilgrim, or do you meet where?
Outside St John's Church. Outside St John's Church. Which is on the high street. Yeah, we start there because we visit the churchyard first, which has the holy thorn. So the Glastonbury holy thorn, which is a hawthorn that flowers in the winter. So it's quite an easy stop off at St John's, and then we head up the high street. So yeah, it's St John's Church that we start outside mostly, unless we're doing a tour of the Abbey, in which case we're in the Abbey.
Now, years ago when I was going there all the time, we met the unofficial mayor. And he had those two shops side by side opposite the the church you just spoke about,
Mm.
and he had the red door, and he lived upstairs. I can't think of his name.
You're talking about the rose shop, I think, down the alleyway, the little alleyway on St John's.
No. He was in the main street. They had two main shops side by side.
Okay.
Yeah, and then just coming down slightly towards Four Seasons, there was a red door. You went upstairs. Anyway.
Okay. Right.
No, that
No.
one.
No, yeah, right. Yeah.
Anyway,
Before we go, someone said hello, whatever.
the audio was fine for me, but I'll go and listen to the original now.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Cheers. Appreciate that. Yeah. Nice one. I'm doing walks in Shepton, Wells, and Wedmore in June as well. That could do with a mention. So spreading the canopy out a little bit.
And if you're in Glastonbury, we can often find you in the deli.
My office. Yeah.
Yeah, your office.
Every day,
favorite place
Andrena.
for coffee. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I should be going up there shortly after this. So anyway, thank you
I'll see you
everybody
there.
for tuning in today. It's been absolutely lovely. Thank you, Matt. In fact, thank you, Jeffrey. And same time, same place next week.
Lovely. Thank you.
Bless you. Thank you very much.